right, we're back with the Essex Design AP Racing Competition Brake Kit, and this is part 2 of a 2-part series. I hope you got a chance to see part 1. In part 1, where we left off was talking about the difference between a great track day and a horrible track day. And I had such a bad experience and such a bad track day that it saved a little memory from that. And it all came from that OEM caliper that I absolutely shredded to pieces. All of my money, all my track day fees, everything that I did for that weekend was completely wasted, and I didn't feel like going through that again, so that's when I started upgrading to the AP big brake kits. But tell me why this went wrong.
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons this went wrong, and we see this all the time. This is not a rare exception. This is more the norm than the exception. So, like we talked about in the first part, this system isn't designed for all-day abuse on a racetrack, period. It is...
Now you tell me.
Yeah, right. It is racier than, a sliding caliper on the average sedan driving around the street, but there are still a lot of deficiencies in this component versus what we're selling. So I can just walk you through piece by piece if you'd like.
Yes.
The first one is the finish. I mean, obviously this thing's cooked. You can see all the paint's black down here. It's sort of a shade of pink. It's like Technicolor caliper. A little bit of everything in there. You got some cooked brake fluid up here on it. So it's pretty well roasted, and we see that all the time. Paint and powder coat shift colors. So when they get super hot, they're going to shift, they're going to change. Red can eventually turn brown, gold turns brown, all different kinds of crazy things going on with the finish. Now, we solved that problem by going with an anodized finish. So this does not have near the color shift at that, and the amount of heat you have to put into this to make it change color at all is huge. So you're not going to, they aren't going to be a pretty red shade to start with, but they aren't going to look terrible after you beat them up a little bit, which is nice. So that's the first one. The next thing is the pad shapes is really a big thing too. So when a new a new car comes out, a new platform, a lot of times they'll use a common pad shape that they've used on other cars, but many times they'll use something completely new. When that happens, the customer is stuck. They don't have a lot of pad options, so that's a huge problem. If you want to go to the racetrack, you may not have any race friction available for your caliper. So when we design a competition caliper, that's designed around a common pad shape. So the design we use on this one, for example, this is our CP9668 Radical caliper from AP Racing. And this is pretty much the case across all our calipers. We use common pad shapes. So all the major manufacturers make this pad shape in all their different friction compounds. Right. So no matter where you are, you're going to be able to find a pad for it. You're going to have a lot of options depending on what you like to buy that pad. Also, usually the OEM pads are thinner. A caliper like this, we have up to an inch thick pad on this sucker. So you get a lot more pad volume and a lot longer wear out of it. It insulates the pistons from heat, so a lot of benefits to that thicker, larger pad. Another one that you're going to see here, if you look down closely inside the caliper here, I'll tilt it, it's probably tough to see a little bit here. These pistons are aluminum. Aluminum is not great at keeping heat out of the brake fluid. With our competition calipers, we're using a stainless steel piston with ventilation on it. So that's what these little castellations are around the edge here. So that's going to allow air to flow through there versus the aluminum piston. Also, these pistons have a domed back, which makes them stiffer, and you're going to feel that through the pedal. And they're also stainless steel. So stainless steel is a far better insulator against heat than the aluminum is. So the transfer of heat into your brake fluid is going to be much slower with the stainless steel, so far more effective. We've had some competitors say they don't like the idea of stainless steel. We also use titanium at the highest end of racing. Right. There's some talk out there about, oh, well, the expansion rate of the piston's different than the aluminum caliper body. The reality is no serious race car on any track in the world is running aluminum pistons. It just doesn't happen. They're either titanium, stainless steel, or they have a ceramic button on them. Aluminum is a road car type material for pistons. Right. It's just that simple. The next one would be seals and dust boots. So our calipers don't have a dust boot in them. And if you look on here, there's no rubber dust boot surrounding the piston, whereas there used to be a dust boot. You can see
Right.
the tattered remains of a dust boot there.
Right.
Now, the idea behind the dust boot is to keep debris out of the piston, but the reality is it's completely useless when it burns off. This is not doing anyone any good. And this can happen. We've seen this happen in one session on a track, on a really hard braking track.
Right.
Those burn up. They're useless. So they're pointless. It's not going to give you any benefit at all. So dust boots is one of them. Seals is another. Now inside of around that end of that piston is a seal. People a lot of times will get the dust boots and the seals confused. Every caliper has a seal. Otherwise, it would be spewing fluid everywhere. So the seals we use are a high temperature silicone racing seal. And what happens on a OE road car type caliper, as heat is introduced over and over, those seals get brittle and they start to crack and fall apart, and then the caliper starts to leak and it needs to be serviced more frequently. Whereas our seals in our caliper are designed to withstand that heat, stay resilient, stay pliable, and stay effective. So, you know, you don't have to rebuild the caliper as much when you have the proper seals in it.
Now, Jeff, I've had calipers in the past where it's had a fixed bridge and I literally had to remove the whole thing just to change the pads. Obviously, it's not the case here.
Right, that's one of the big benefits of this type of design. It's a two-piece caliper and it has a removable bridge. So the pad change is super easy. All you do is pull these two bolts out, pop the old pads out, pop the new one in. This one actually comes with the spring clip option too, where you literally squeeze the spring clip, lift it up. You don't even have to use a tool. You just use your fingers and you can drop the pads in and out. Nice. We find it actually takes longer to raise the car up, pull the wheel off than it does to change the pads, which is a beautiful thing. So it's really convenient, yeah. One other thing too about pistons that I wanted to mention. We don't always use just standard off-the-shelf calipers. So when we're designing a brake system, we're trying to match the torque output that comes from the factory. And we do that by piston sizing, disc diameter, and in this case, we'll ignore the coefficient of friction of the pad. So piston sizing, for every application we make, we're matching very closely the OEM torque output. So what that means is you can put a front kit on, leave the factory rears alone, and it'll work great. It integrates seamlessly with your ABS. A few other features of this I wanted to talk about. The stiffness, and we'll talk more about this later in our Radical video, but this caliper, the stiffness is incredibly higher versus this, particularly under load. The weight, this caliper weighs 6.5 pounds roughly. That's about 10 pounds or 11 pounds. Easily. So big difference on unsprung weight.
All right, so besides being a cool little trophy piece that I'm going to put on the mantle, I've destroyed this. What next? What else can I do with it?
Well, you could try to rebuild it, but you're probably not going to have the best luck finding someone to help you with that. You're going to have to chase down the parts for it, and it's just going to happen again, to be honest with you. Right. Obviously, there's a fundamental issue here. It's not up to the task at hand. That's one of the really cool things about our competition brake kit program is our rebuild service, or our caliper reconditioning service. Essex is AP Racing's only authorized caliper reconditioning facility in North America. So anyone that buys one of our systems, over the course of their ownership, they can send the caliper back into us, and we will assess the caliper and then rebuild it. We do Rockwell hardness testing on the calipers. We do pressure bench testing on them. We wash them in an ultrasonic cleaner. We have all the spare parts on hand, so you don't have to worry about waiting. You got a track day coming up. You want that back fast, right? So we have all that capability in-house, and the same guys that are building a caliper for a NASCAR Sprint Cup team, with millions of people are going to be watching, those guys are the same exact guys that are going to be building your caliper. So you can be confident when you get them back, they're going to be right, they're going to be fresh and ready to rock and roll when you get out to the track again.
And I've seen the lab. It's impressive. It looks like an operating room. I mean, it's really cool the way that these things are coming together. So obviously, calipers, big, huge component to the big brake kit. What are the other pieces to this kit? A little more detail on those pieces.
Sure. Well, we had a previous video that you worked on, John, was with the two-piece discs. Discs are a huge part of this. I won't go into quite as much detail because you've covered a lot of that. A couple of the big ones are the metallurgy. AP Racing's been developing iron brake discs for over 50 years. They've got that science down. This is a very crack-resistant metallurgy that is used in professional racing, and it's going to last a long time without falling apart. The high vane count, this is something you're not going to see on any of our competitor discs. Usually they're going to have 48 vane disc. What this does is creates a lot of airflow. So if you're pumping air into this thing, it's pumping a lot of air out and it's cooling them off quickly. So the discs are really important. Features like that, the J-hook slot pattern. The idea behind that is to disperse the heat evenly across the face of the disc. The floating disc, as it expands, it can slide on the channels and it's not going to cone or warp. So there are just a huge number of benefits here, and this is kind of the starting point. The heat, if this is running cool, this is running cool. Right. If you want more details on that, watch our two-piece disc video.
Right, and there's an investment here, there's an investment here, and one of my pet peeves, I think it's one of yours too, is when you see a guy get serious about brakes and then hooked up to this is this little rubber hose that could pop, at any moment. So in this big brake kit, you actually have the stainless steel Spiegler hoses that come with it.
That's right, and Spiegler is our partner on brake lines, and they actually started out in motorcycles, so they're pretty popular there, and very high quality. The company's owned by a German engineer who's meticulous. Stainless steel fittings all the way around, very different than what else is on the market. These are from Switzerland, I believe. He sources those. These are built and tested in Ohio, so everything super top quality on everything. I mean, it's gonna increase the pedal feel. Just a great quality part, and those are all included with the kits as well. We have a few more items in the brake kit. I'll mention the bracket is a billet aluminum anodized part. These are really trick. Our design engineers really work. You can see the little channel here, trying to get some extra weight out of it. We're analyzing stiffness and trying to make these as light yet strong as possible to get the job done. Same thing with the disc hat. Made out of billet aluminum, hard anodized, so it's going to last a long time without any deformation. Just a really high quality part, all the way down to the hardware even. The hardware components are all domestically sourced, the same ones we use in NASCAR Sprint Cup, same exact parts that are in our competition brake kits for the common enthusiast.
So it's a great overview in part 2 of this big brake kit video. I hope you got a chance to see part 1. If we didn't answer all the questions that you have, there is a phone number they can call and talk to an actual real human being.
Absolutely, yeah. It's 704-824-6030, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. A lot of places have an electronic attendant. You can't get a hold of anyone when you need help. We don't do that. Always have a live human being pick up the phone. So give us a call and we'll help you out and do what we can.
Or you can go to essexparts.com for more video shorts like this. But thanks for joining us for the Big Brake Kit Part 1 and 2. We'll see you next time.